YouTube family. It's Lisa Romano, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and I am bowing to the love and the light in you. Namaste. So today I received an email from Rachel from Brooklyn, New York, and she writes, "Dear Lisa, thanks to your videos, I finally know what's wrong with me. Nothing. Turns out I am an empath and sadly also a codependent. Are all empaths codependent? And do you have any tips that can help me stay more grounded in my own skin? Thank you." So I get this question asked a lot. Like, what is the difference between an empath and a codependent? And are all empaths codependent? So an empath is someone who is highly sensitive, and a very small percentage of the population turns out to be highly sensitive. Empaths are those amongst us that tend to cry, at everything, or we end up being very emotional about everything. We hear a news story and it resonates within our being. We see a picture of some tragedy and we can imagine the feelings of the people in the photo. We see and hear trees being chopped down, and we can't help but think about, oh my God, why is that poor tree being chopped down? We imagine that we can feel what the tree feels. We think about the birds who used to live in the tree and the nests that are being knocked out of the tree. And we're just overwhelmed by all these energies and these feelings from outside of ourselves. So I believe that being an empath is, that means that you're born highly sensitive. There are some people who believe that your astrological sign has something to do with being born super sensitive. There may be some truth to that. As a Piscean, the people that I relate to best are also Pisces. My husband happens to be a Pisces. A lot of my clients are Pisces, which is really interesting. A lot of them aren't, but it's just interesting that some astrological signs seem to be more in tune or attuned to what's happening outside of themselves, opposed to some people who are reacting to what is happening inside of them, but not necessarily because they can feel what someone else is feeling. They're reacting to what's happening, or they're reacting to how someone feels about them, which makes their internal environment very, very troubling and very sometimes chaotic. So there is a huge difference. So an empath is somebody who is naturally attuned to their environment, who is overwhelmed sometimes very easily, by being in large groups of people. I had a client who was brought to me by one of my clients. Was his child. He brought me his child who was 17 years old and suffered from tics. And after working with this teenager, it became apparent that he was very much attuned to the energies that were around him, and he didn't understand what was coming at him. And so all he felt was overwhelming emotions, and he ended up having anxiety and could not sit still for a very long time in school, and would bolt, just, I can't sit here anymore, bolt. And when we dug a little deeper and he began to understand how he may have been picking up on other people's energies, then I taught him some skills that allowed him to be able to block, so that he can move through life feeling more grounded and be aware that he's picking up naturally, almost psychically, of on how other people are feeling. But he learned to hold on to himself so strongly that in spite of what he was feeling and picking up on in his environment, he could still go about his day and not get overwhelmed, which is that's a home run. And then his tics went away. Just amazing. I taught him some deep relaxation, taught him some breathing, taught him some meditation, and just amazing how much better this child is doing today. So the first part of the question is, what's the difference between an empath and a codependent? So an empath, you can be an empath and not be codependent. A codependent is, I am a recovering codependent and also an empath, which is a double whammy. Oh my Lord. So my heart goes out to anybody out there that is relating to being an empath, picking up on other people's energies and being codependent, because you are like a feather in the wind. You are susceptible to how everybody else feels, and you're constantly trying to manage everybody else's emotions, constantly trying to make sure that everybody's okay, constantly trying to fix how other people feel. You take on other people's emotions. It's just a maddening experience. And I ended up with lots of problems, clinical depression and a lot of chronic illnesses, and hence they've all been lifted because I was able to diagnose what was really wrong with me, which was codependency. And then I learned to appreciate the fact that I'm also an empath. And so now I feel like I've been able to shield myself. So you can be an empath and feel for other people without having to fix them. You can be an empath and be solid in your skin and be able to empathize and have great empathy and high empathy for other people. But you can also be able to protect the divine in a child, if you will, and for the purpose of not allowing yourself to be sucked into other people's dramas. Most often, empaths are very much affected by how other people feel, but you can be an empath and pick up on how other people feel and not be responsible for how other people feel. So codependents will pick up on other people's energies and then sense that someone's upset and then go right into trying to fix why that person's upset. So they'll go right into trying to lift that person's mood. So when codependents do this, they're doing it for lots of reasons. They're taught that that's their job, to take care of other people. Sometimes codependents are codependent because they're seeking this attachment trauma, rescue. They've been wounded in childhood. They've suffered an abandonment, a severe abandonment, most often a maternal abandonment. There is this wound that exists in the ethereal vibrational frequency of this aura of this human being. And psychologically, we're always trying to get that unmet need met. So very oftentimes codependents who are empaths and they're sensing that someone else is upset, it could be their husband, it could be their wife, it could be their kid, it could be their grandmother, their mother, their father, whoever, it could be a stranger. A codependent will swoop in and want to make that person feel better. And sometimes it's self-deprecating, sometimes blah, 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 blah. Sorry about that. Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's rescuing, sometimes tries to be funny, sometimes begins to caretake, sometimes enables the other person, because what they're ultimately seeking is a sense of validation. So not all empaths are codependent, but codependents tend to be very empathic. So I hope that makes sense to you. And keep your questions coming, because as you send me questions, you force me to get a little bit deeper and a little bit more articulate. And no, there's no harm in that. In you, there I am, and in me, there you are. We are all part of a whole, and we're all really just facets of one another in terms of consciousness. So, as you ask questions and I'm forced to figure something out on a deeper level, I bring it to you guys and we raise the vibrations of the planet. It's all good. Don't worry about it, dear ones. Whatever you want to ask me, ask me. I get a lot of questions about my hair color, which is interesting, but whatever, I digress. So here are some 5 key exercises for empaths that I hope might help you. So the first thing that I want you to do, if you are someone who has very high empathy and you're finding it difficult to ground yourself, is I want you to commit yourself, really commit yourself, right? Because no one else can take you seriously until you take you seriously. We are literally creating our reality as we go. So if I am not being taken seriously, that is because I have not yet learned to take myself seriously. It is bizarre, but that's the way it works. As codependents, we're constantly seeking validation outside of ourselves, and generally we don't get it. And the moment the light bulb goes off, we go, okay, I have to validate myself. I have to stop seeking other people's validation. Okay, was that a codependent thought? Was that a healthy thought? Did I take care of myself? Did I expect someone else to take care of me? Did I take care of someone else's needs when they should have been taking care of their own needs? This is what I teach in my coaching program and in my one-to-one sessions, in my group calls, and blah, 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 and on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to teach you guys to be more observing of the self, more cognitive. I want you out of the amygdala and the hippocampus, because that's where all your programming and all your reactivity exists. So I want you to be more neocortex, more prefrontal lobe, so that you can observe when you're actually having a codependent thought process. So you have to take yourself more seriously. Rule number one, you're going to start each and every day with the intention to see life through your inner child's eyes first. So you're going to have empathy for the inner child first, okay? So your first order of business as an empath, as you're trying to really learn how to shield and ground yourself so that you can, resonate with higher frequencies and manifest the kind of life experience you really want to manifest, is you're going to start to take yourself more seriously. You have to intend to do that, because what happens is you walk into the world and you naturally pick up the energies of other people, the feelings and moods of other people. You could walk into a mall and look around the room, and it happens to me all the time. And all I have to do is look at someone's face, and their face tells a story to me, and I feel it in my being, like, wow, this is, oh wow. My kids will say, "How do you know that?" I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I'm sensing it, and I could be wrong. Obviously, we could all be wrong, but my gut, my spirit tells me no. So, because that is our natural state as an empath, we have to become extremely conscious and cognitive of how we relate to the world naturally. And so we have to intend, we have to use cognition, higher thoughts of consciousness, prefrontal lobe, neocortex. We've got to make CEO type decisions from our brain for our own behalf. So I say every day wake up with the intention to see life through the inner child's eyes first. So that means that when you're out and about, you ask yourself, you tell yourself, see this situation through your eyes first, the inner child's eyes first. Have empathy for the inner child first. Have empathy for the inner child first. So let's say you hear a tragic news story, like so many of us hear, and it's upsetting, and you find yourself overcome by imagining how this mother feels about, God forbid, losing her child, right? It's beautiful that you have that type of empathy. But many of us can spiral down into a state of depression because of something that happened halfway across the world. So while it's a beautiful thing, we also have to learn how to stay in our own reality if we're going to keep our vibrations high. So what we want to do is say namaste to the empathy, the empath that you are, and then remember to have empathy for the child, the inner child's experience, who is always feels sad for someone else, or who is inundated with vibrations for other people, who has a hard time staying grounded. So have empathy for the inner child first. I hope that helps you. So empaths can be like lobsters when they shed their, I don't know if you know this, but lobsters shed their shells, when they outgrow them. And so do shrimp. We were going to put some shrimp into my fish tank, and the guy at the fish store said, "No, you can't, because some of your fish are just too aggressive. They will destroy and eat the shrimp and or the baby lobster." I was like, "I don't want that. That's awful." Oh, you know. But then when I started thinking about empaths and codependents, and I started to realize that, you know, very much part of the recovery journey is learning to grow a shell that protects the divine in your child. Because as a codependent and an empath, you're naturally sensitive, right? So we need this protective shell. We need this skin that we have to develop. So anchoring yourself in having empathy for the self, in my opinion, will help you develop this extra skin, this extra psychological skin. Very important for you to remember. So the second thing is, I want you to remember that it's not your job to fix other people, and understand that everyone is on their own journey. As empaths and codependents, we tend to want to jump in and fix other people for a myriad of reasons. But one thought process that can really help you stay grounded, and remember, this is Rachel's question from Brooklyn: how can I stay more grounded? You have to understand and respect that every single person is on their own planetary journey. They're on their own spiritual journey. They're on their own spiritual quest. It is self-righteous of us to think that we have the right to interfere with someone else's life experience. Biblically, it's spoken that we should ask and thou shalt receive. So I heeded that message, and there's lots of wisdom, in ancient teachings like the Bible. And so when you pull that apart, ask and thou shalt receive. The opposite is true. If you're not asking, you can't receive. So I've learned to shut my big ass opinionated mouth, and I wait for people to ask me a question now. So I had to learn how to be at a table of 10 or 12 or 15 people, because that's about the size of our family these days. And I had to learn to shut up and keep my opinion to myself until someone asked me what I thought. When someone asks you for their help, or someone you for your help, or someone asks you your opinion, that is when your wisdom and what you know can be accepted. And that's why so often when we try to force our alcoholics or the people that we love that are addicted into treatment, it fails because they didn't ask to be helped. They're not at that beautiful, beautiful place, not at that rock bottom place where anything is possible. You've got nowhere else to go but up. That's where I was when my back was up against the wall and my ex-husband sold my house and said, "You and the kids are out." I was like, oh, well, that was rock bottom. Sold the business, lied about how much money he made, refused to give me alimony, kept me in the divorce proceedings like over 4 years. And it was like rock bottom. Okay, I gotta go. The only place to go was up, either that or complete annihilation. And because I love my children too much, that was not going to happen. So it is very, very important to anchor yourself in the understanding that it is not your job to fix other people. It's just not. And everybody's on their own journey, which takes the load off of you. You don't have to be responsible for everybody else in your life. All you really have to do is be responsible for yourself. As you grow in self responsibility, your vibration will rise and you actually become an inspiration to those people that you actually live with and commune with and have relationships with, which is really, really cool. So just pay attention to yourself. See things from the inner child's eyes. Remember, it's not your job to fix people. Everybody's on their own planetary journey, blah, blah, blah. The third thing is that I want you to do one kind thing for yourself a day. So that might be journaling. That might be take a nap. That might be get a manicure. That might be, go fishing with your buddies. That might be, go bowling with a couple of friends. That might be, organizing your office. I just did a whole bunch of filing with paperwork, organized my office, and I didn't want to do it, but once I did it, I felt really, really good. So I did that for me because the peace that came from organizing my paperwork felt like a gift. So now I feel more in order. So that's also going to help you because you have to come at life from the position of self, right? So when you're an empath or a codependent, you're as an empath, you are controlled by, unfortunately, until you really, really wake up. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you are serious about waking up and you understand that there are people, you are either asleep or you are awake. And then whether you're unconscious or you're awake, it really is it's a matter of degrees at that point. So I'm assuming that you wish to be awakened or you're on the awakened path, which is just terrific. So we're trying to learn to hold on to ourselves and live our life through our own unique perspective so that we can fulfill our destiny here on planet Earth, raise the vibrations of the planet, inspire one another. So doing one kind thing for yourself helps you stay connected to who you truly are. The fourth thing that I want you to do, it sounds hokey pokey, but there is a lot of wisdom in it, is I want you to take an Epsom salt bath often. So that might be once a day. That might be a few times a day. When I was going through my recovery journey and I was really having all these awarenesses, like things changed. I got acne, my hair started falling out, my body, my odor changed. It was kind of weird, really strange. My skin got really greasy. My stomach started to change. I started to have, weird stomach issues. And I began to understand that my body was releasing toxins and releasing old dark energies. And I kind of just learned to go with it. I said, my body knows what it's doing. I'm bringing my mind, into alignment with my body. I'm going to learn to honor my body. I'm going to learn to let this anxiety, like Kundalini energy, just kind of shoo, through my crown chakra. I had repressed so much. Remember, depression is the result of suppression. If you're depressed, you're suppressing, you're repressing. If you really want to be freed of depression, in my opinion, you've got to learn to express. That doesn't mean that you express to people who abuse you. No, you have to hold on to yourself and honor your divine child in the company of people who are abusive. But you have to find a way to express what you feel, whether through journaling, whether through singing, whether through writing, whether through talk therapy, whether through your own video channel, whether through writing a book. You have to find a way to express these energies that have been repressed for so long, so that they can come through you and, leave your crown chakra and return to where they came. That is really um, very, very helpful. Now, Epsom salt baths will help if they're very soothing, and I believe that the bathing can be ritualistic, not crazy, not OCD bathing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, if you've tapped into something that's very deep and dark and something that's been repressed in your being, or if you have this awareness about yourself and you're struggling with taking accountability, and it's tough for you, go into the shower and just imagine yourself washing these dark energies off of you. If you've gone to a party and there are lots of people there and you're an empath and you felt like, these energies have just attached themselves to you. I took one of those showers this morning, and I'm bathing myself, and I'm imagining that, all these energies that are not mine are just, being washed off my body. And so it helps the mind, it helps the brain understand that the energies that you have absorbed, or have attached themselves to you, or that you have tapped into, however you want to perceive it. It helps your brain understand that it's separate from you. Those energies are not you. Okay. So it's like a smudge stick does the same thing. If you get a sage smudge stick, your shaman do this, they smudge these energies and these pains off of you, right? So it's the same principle. So I would like you to consider adopting that as your own. The fifth thing that I would like you to remember is that you want to remind yourself that feeling other people's feelings can be a gift as well as a curse. It's exhausting. So use the beautiful gift of detachment. So it may help you to imagine having a force field around you. I do this a lot. That helps you block off other people's energies. So think often that what you want to ask yourself often, are these my feelings, or are they someone else's feelings? Is this how I feel, or am I imagining how she would feel? Lots of times, as empaths, what we do is we'll observe a situation, and our mirror neurons are just like buzzing, and we're imagining we can actually feel what it feels like to be that person experiencing that situation. And what'll happen is the unaware mind will just go with that stream of thought, right? So, for instance, my husband went out for a blood test this morning. As soon as he walked in, I was like, "What's up with his energy?" I just knew. And like he was frowning. He's got a very large forehead, by the way. But whatever, I digress. So anyway, he's frowning, and I'm like, "Oh, what's up with Honey Bunny?" And he says, "Babe," he says, I was at this lab corp. That's where he went to get his lab test done. And he says, and there was this man in front of me, and he went to the desk and he asked them about his stool sample. I know this sounds gross, but this is a true story. And my husband's observing, right? So my husband is very empathic, and I know, and he's also a recovering codependent. So I know that his mirror neurons are going bing, 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 bing. He's feeling for this guy. And he says the guy couldn't have been any nicer. And the woman at the desk says, "Oh, we forgot to send it out." So he says very nicely, "What does that mean?" And she says, "Well, it means that, the stool sample was supposed to go out in so many days, and now it's 11 days. So," and he says, "What does that mean?" Still very nice. And she says, "Well, it means that you have to do another test." So the interesting part of the story is that my husband came back with this poor guy. Now, listen to the language. He's saying, this poor man, he went there the first time, and, he went to his doctor. He found out that he needed to have a stool sample done. He got the kit. He did the test, if that's not horrible enough, but things we have to do as human beings, he does the kit. He takes it to this lab, right? He waits. He comes back to the lab. This is all the way my husband's speaking. So I already know, and listening to my husband, he has totally empathized with this human being. And he had gone back to the lab. Now his stool sample isn't any good. So now the guy has to go back home, take the test again. Then he's got to come back to the lab to drop it off. Then he's got to wait. Then he's going to come back to the lab again. And my husband was absorbed in this story about this other person, which is part of why I love him so much and part of what makes him a good partner. And I suggest this all the time. I'm going to be doing a video for single women and single men, single, codependent, and empathetic men and women, because you need to know that you have to find somebody who has a decent level of empathy, because they're good partners. And if you have high empathy, you need a partner that also has high empathy. Otherwise, you're just going to feel unseen and invisible. It's not going to work. Or it'll work and it really won't work functionally. I'll just be very uncomfortable. So my point is that when my husband came in, it was like my husband was imagining this man's story, and you could see that his energy was changed because of this man's story. So it is awesome that we have the ability to empathize with human beings. I mean, we have mirror neurons. We are social creatures. And it helps us. This is why we don't have a completely insane society. And we don't. We have parts of our society definitely need help. But I think 99.9% or 98% of the society is awesome. 98% of us do not experience what with the 1% or the 0.05% of society does experience that isn't so good. Most of us go through our lives and nothing really tragic happens on a daily basis to us. You know, we have the news media, and unfortunately, I really don't understand this concept, but apparently only bad things equal news. There are good news stories happening every single day. But because I've worked with and I've coached people in the media, and they were very frank, and they said that we go where the story is. The more chaotic the story, the more people, the more viewership. It's all about money and advertising, which is disgusting in my opinion, but it is what it is. And if you've watched the presidential campaign this season, you have witnessed it firsthand. It's just horrific. I digress. I'm sorry, dear ones. But anyway, so number 5, you want to use the beautiful gift of detachment. Ask yourself often, am I feeling what that person's feeling? Am I imagining what that person's feeling? How am I feeling? How am I feeling? See, if I was with my husband and we were doing this type of an exercise, I would have said to him, how are you feeling about your experience while you're here with this lab? What's your unique experience? That would have brought his focus back to himself, and I would have been able to help him retrieve his point of focus from outside of himself so that he can stay grounded and experience his unique experience. And then that would have prevented him from going down the rabbit hole, imagining how this person felt, because he even went as far as to say, why is that guy there in the first place? He's probably terrified that he has some type of an issue, and so you could just see that my husband was just really getting taken up by the story of this man. Again, very much a big part of why I love him so much is because he can do that. So I hope this video has helped those of you who are trying to figure out what's the difference between being a codependent and an empath. And I hope that those of you who have discovered that you're an empath, you're learning to really, really embrace this idea that you're super, super sensitive, which is awesome. I really hope that it's helped you gain more control over your beautiful gift. So remember, bring it back to you, work on being grounded, work on being focused. Think about the kinds of realities you want to experience. Bring your awareness into your body and hold on to yourself. Namaste, dear ones. I bow to the love and the light in you. Bye.